Even Donald Trump can be right on some of this stuff. Steel has it reached the conditions in steel were almost unbelievably adverse to the American steel industry.
Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. How will Donald Trump's tariffs affect Berkshire Hathaway?
As I said earlier, I don't think the United States or China, there'll be some jockeying back and forth, and there'll be something that leaves some people unhappy. But I don't think either country will dig themselves into something that precipitates and continues any kind of real trade war in this country. We've had that in the past a few times, and I think we've learned a general lesson on it. But there will be some things about our trade policies that irritate others, and there'll be some from others that irritate us, and there'll be some back and forth. But in the end, I don't think we'll come out with a terrible answer on it. The thing about trade, I've always said that the president, whether it's any president, needs to be an educator in chief, which Roosevelt was in the Depression. That's why he had those fireside chats, and it was very important that he communicated to the people what needed to be done and how, and what was happening around them. And trade is particularly difficult because the benefits of trade are basically not visible. You don't know what you would be paying for the clothes you're ordering today if we'd had a rule they all had to be manufactured in the United States, or what you'd be paying for your television set or whatever it may be. No one thinks about the benefits day by day as they walk around buying things and carrying on their own business. The negatives, and there are negatives, are very apparent and very painful. If you're laid off, like happened in our shoe business in Maine, and you are been a very, very, very good worker, and you are proud of what you did, and maybe your parents did it before you, and all of a sudden you find out that American shoes manufactured in America, are not competitive with shoes made outside the United States. You can talk all you know about Adam Smith or David Ricardo or something and explain the benefits of free trade and comparative advantage and all that sort of thing. And that doesn't make any difference. And if you're 55 or 60 years old, to talk about retraining or something like that, so what? It is tough in politics where you have a hidden benefit and a very visible cost to a certain percentage of your constituency. And you need to do two things under those circumstances. If you have that situation, you know what's good for the country. So you have to be very good at explaining how it does really hurt in a real way somebody that works in a textile mill like we had in New Bedford, where you only spoke Portuguese, half our workers only spoke Portuguese, and suddenly they have no job, and they've been doing their job well for years. You've got to do two things. You have to understand that that's the price individuals pay for what's good for the collective good, and secondly, you got to take care of the people that were retraining as a joke because of their age or whatever it may be, and you've got to take care of the people that become the roadkill in something that is collectively good for us as a country, and that takes society acting through its representatives to develop the policies that will get us the right collective result and not kill too many people economically in the process. And we've done that in various arenas over the years. The people in their productive years do help take care of the people that are too old and too young. I mean, every time a baby is born in the United States, we take on an obligation of educating them for 12 years. It'll cost $150,000 now. we have a system that has a bond between the people in their productive years and the ones in the young and old, and it gets better over time. Far from perfect now, but it has gotten better over time, and I believe that trade, properly explained and with policies that take care of the people that are roadkill, is good for our country and can be explained. But I think it's been a tough sell to a guy that made shoes in Dexter, Maine, or worked on a loom in New Bedford, Mass, or works in a steel mill in Youngstown, Ohio. So,
Actually, I picked out the car I have based on the fact that it had airbags on both sides. So that was a factor. It may have been the first car of its type ever made with airbags, but I think my car actually, it's both heavy and has airbags, and those are two primary factors in safety. I don't think I don't think a safer car is necessarily being made. It might be safer to drive around in a big heavy duty truck or something, but I'm not ready for that. Incidentally, on a car, I look at that like anything else. It would take me probably a half a day to go through the exercise of buying a car and reading the owner's manual and all of that. And that's just a half a day I don't want to give up in my life for no benefit. If I could write a check in 30 seconds and be in the same position I'm in now with a newer car, I'd be glad to do it this afternoon. But I don't like to trade away when there's really no benefit to me at all. I'm totally happy with the car. I just don't want to trade away the amount of time I'd have to spend fooling around to get familiar with and get title to and do all the rest of the things. Pick one out, so a new car. But if there's a safer car made, I'll be driving in it.
Well, in personal consumption, Warren is more frugal.
would you care to give an example?
Warren lives in the same house he bought for a very modest price, what, in 1950 something?
I bought it in 1958, and you moved into yours about 1960, didn't you?
Yeah, and I paid more.
But he designed his own. He designed his own house. He did not pay an architect, right?
I did. I paid an architect $1,900. It was as much as 30% of the normal price.
Yeah. Notice how he remembers the details. No, I have everything in life I want. It's a very simple thing. If there's anything that money could buy, there are things money can't buy. But if there's anything money could buy that I wanted, I'd do it this afternoon. I wouldn't have any problem with that at all. I do not think that standard of living equates with cost of living beyond a certain point. I mean, up to a certain point, there's no question that it does. I mean, in terms of having good housing, good health service, good food, everything. But good transportation. But there's a point, I think, if anything, you start getting inverse correlation. My life would not be happier. In fact, it'd be worse if I had 6 or 8 houses or a whole bunch of different things I could have. It just doesn't correlate, and so having everything I have, I mean, you can't have more than that, and that doesn't really make any. It makes a difference up to a point. I mean, you can start thinking a lot differently when you got to X, but when you get to 10X or 100X or 1,000X, it just doesn't make any possible difference. Charlie,
the frugality basically has helped Berkshire. And I look out at this audience and I see a bunch of understated frugal people too. We collect you people.
But forget about it this weekend. The more you buy, the more you save at these prices, folks.
Mr. Buffett, I've heard that one of your ways of focusing your energy is that you write down the 25 things you want to achieve, choose the top 5, and then avoid the bottom 20. I'm really curious how you came up with this and what other methods you have to prioritizing your desires?
Well, I'm actually more curious about how you came up with it, because it really isn't the case. It sounds like a very good method of operating, but it's much more disciplined than I actually am. If they stick fudge down in front of me, I eat it. I'm not thinking about 25 other choices. So I don't mean to. Charlie and I live very simple lives. We know what we do enjoy, and we now have the option of doing it pretty much. Charlie likes to design buildings. I mean, he's no longer a frustrated architect. He's a full-fledged architect now, and and we both like to read a lot. But I've never made lists. I can't recall making a list in my life. But maybe I'll start. You've given me an idea. Thank you. Charlie?
Well, what's really interesting on this subject of Warren's operating methods, you can see happening here. We didn't know when we started out this modern psychological evidence to the effect that you shouldn't make a lot of important decisions when you're tired, and that making a lot of difficult decisions is tiring. And we didn't also know as well as we now do how helpful it is to be consuming caffeine and sugar when you're making important decisions. And what happens, of course, is that both Warren and I live entirely on autopilot in terms of the ordinary decisions of life. We're just totally habitual, so we don't waste any decision-making energy on that stuff, and we're ingesting caffeine and sugar. And it turns out, under the modern evidence, this is an ideal way to sit where Warren sits. And when he didn't know that, he just stumbled into it.
Now, when we write our book on nutrition, it promises to be a huge seller.
I cannot remember an important decision that Warren has made when he was tired. He's never tired. He sleeps soundly, and he doesn't waste time thinking about what he's going to eat. As you say, he just eats what he's always eaten. No, his style turns out to be absolutely ideal for human cognition. It looks peculiar, but he stumbled into something very good.
Yeah. You can write the foreword to my next book. Okay. Andrew.